Hey, how's it going, everybody? BFL Show Week 2 with new and improved, joined by Drew and Ryan. We go way back, so I apologize in advance for any inside jokes that you have no context of. The theme of this week's show is best offense is a good defense. Because
Love
as
you,
we all
Nate.
know, there's nothing more exciting than a defensive touchdown. How are you guys doing?
Outstanding.
Good. Glad to be here.
Good. Any comments about last week? Whether it be NFL related, fantasy related, BFL show related?
I thought week 1 was going to be really, really boring until it got down to like the last half a quarter in quarter 4 and pretty much every game in week 1. Then shit went bananas. And that's why I love the NFL.
Holy missed field goals.
Yeah, a lot of missed field goals. Cost old Rodrigo his job.
No more slaying puss.
Scott Hansen does the red zone. That's not the DirecTV one, just everybody else's. And he always calls the fourth quarter of the first set of games the witching hour, when wins turn to losses and losses turns to wins. And he's not lying. He's not wrong. But probably the most notable injury I'd say would be to Dak Prescott. But it looks like he may only be out a few weeks now. I just found out one of my defensive guys is on IR just tonight. So good. Justin Simmons, not like he's any good or anything. But
I don't know.
Yeah. Other than that, yeah. Go ahead. What did you say?
I was gonna say I don't know if it matters if Dak was hurt. He looked horrible.
Yeah. No. Yeah.
Or he got hurt.
Yeah. I don't know. It's that was not a good way, not a fitting way to end the night. That was a boring stinker of a game. But all right. Well, I guess we'll jump into it. Got the standings up here. Artillery division coming in strong, 1-0 for everybody. But let's be honest, I don't think Ben and Kyle's formula of winning is sustainable. Score in the mid 350s and hope the other guy scores lower.
You also said that roster with the number 1 to it next to it wasn't very scary.
Yeah, I did. I slept hard on Saquon Barkley, and he looked amazing. He's like on my do not draft list, and it's gonna bite me in the ass in all 4 of my leagues. Oh man, yeah, he looked phenomenal. I was not buying what the Giants were selling, as far as their improved offensive line and such, but I'm rooting for the guy. I'm glad because obviously the league's more interesting with players like him when he's playing well.
Justin
Jefferson, yeah, that was pretty impressive. It was sad to see anytime, like me and Ryan text throughout the game almost every time, and I was like, anytime 23 is not in the screen when Jefferson is having his way, we were getting pretty upset. And then Jair Alexander also said, that's not me. You know what I want, in his press conference this week. So he's wanting to guard him one-on-one, but so but yeah, some big points there from Drew. Obviously, Dom had a nice solid week. I like Dom's team a lot. He's got a really deep roster. Phil, obviously, with Minka doing his thing, but then Drew would have even blown him out by 50. So even though I scored the most points in my division, I'm still looking up. So thanks for that, Drew. Appreciate you.
Not a problem.
All right. Oh yeah, another thing I said last week, I said Devontae Smith would be a good play, and because AJ Brown would keep the other guys busy, and Devontae Smith had 0 catches.
You were right about AJ keeping everybody busy.
Yeah, he kept the defenders busy chasing after his ass. He's a baller. But All right, so we're gonna do it a little different this week. We're gonna have Drew do a few breakdowns for matchups, and we're gonna have Ryan break down a few, and then I'm just gonna chime in with thoughts at the end. First up, we got my matchup versus Kyle, and who has this one? Is that
That
Drew?
one.
Okay.
Yep. I
All
just
right.
got a couple things down for
Sure.
you guys' matchup. Just a couple notes for Kyle. I think this matchup could be dictated between the Burrow and Higgins connection. They could have a huge day if Higgins plays. All signs are pointing to him playing, so
Yeah.
that could dictate that matchup. Kudos to him on sticking with Antonio Gibson. I know the stock was way down going into the drafts, but he drafted him and he looked good. I think he put up, what was it, 50 points, somewhere on there. But kudos to that. And then I like his Gruber Hill. I never even heard of the dude, honestly, until last week, and he had like 18 total tackles. So he could be a huge play for him on that. I think for you, Mike, I think obviously Josh Allen, he's a stud. That could be a big difference maker. I mean, you're going to get your 100 points. What else did I have? I think main point for your matchup, it can come down to you could win or you could lose by it. Your two-headed studs with Henry and Jones. If they show up like they don't show up like they did last week, you probably could lose. But like you said too last week, Henry starts off slow. So week one. Yeah, it was a couple of them. Then I got a couple fades for both of you guys. I think Kyle kind of needs to consider getting Devin Bush out of his lineup. That dude's, I've had him for a year and a half, and he only averages like 10 points a game. And I think he had 6 points last week. So that could play into that matchup. And for Mike, I think it's time to cut bait on Jesse Bates. 6 points last week, Mike. So, yeah, but other than that, no, I think it'll be a close matchup. I don't think these projections changed from what I saw, but I think it'll be much closer than what these projections say. I think Mike will pull it out.
Yeah,
Probably
well,
by
obviously,
points.
he'll have somebody in for Curse because Curse is out, so that'll bump the
Right.
projections up a little bit. Yeah, I'm with you on Devin Bush. I think he was originally going to come in and try and play middle linebacker, but he's now kind of outside and he's not really rushing I don't know. I don't think it's the right fit for him, to be honest. Athletic guy, just not getting a whole lot of opportunity. But yeah, as far as the matchup goes, yeah, Henry was obviously slow out of the gate. I made mention of the Jones and Fournette trade, and that's looking after again. I'm not going to panic after 1 week, but Fournette was the bell cow, and Jones only had 5 carries. That's a little disappointing. But Green Bay was really bad in week 1 last year too. I don't know if that's just a coaching thing or none of the starters playing preseason thing or what, but I'm not too worried, overall. I still put up a decent number of points even without those guys doing a whole lot. Devin White had a huge game. I need to get a little bit out of the tight end spot, but other than that, yeah, should be an okay week. I feel pretty good about the matchup.
At first glance, I would take you by probably 40.
Yeah.
Just at first glance. Shout out to the Grugier Hill thing. I actually was going to take him in the round that you took him in, Kyle. So kudos to you for that. Guy finished the year strong. Eastern Illinois, I believe, is where he's from. But he's like 28. And for some reason, man, Lovey has this uncanny knack for being able to, and well, just Tampa 2 anyway. Weak side linebackers get a lot of love in Tampa 2.
Lance Briggs.
I think that just looking at though, like to play along with Drew's fade, like Christian Kirk still to me, like I don't know, maybe it's because he got way overpaid. Maybe that's why I don't like him as much as a lot of other people do. But he did get a lot of targets
Yeah.
in
12.
week 1 that I wasn't expecting. So maybe that'll pan out for you. Maybe I'm a little wrong on that. And I think for you, Mike, Owusu Koromoa might be one of those guys that is absolutely pertinent to a solid defense, but it doesn't always necessarily translate to fantasy points.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Like,
for sure.
But also good call on the Gibson thing. I feel like makes you wonder, especially after the week he had, how many touches Curtis Samuel's going to touch or steal from him. Because they even had him out of the backfield a lot this week. And with Kenneth Gainwell, I mean, golly, flip a coin.
Yeah.
I mean, Dom still wants the first round pick for him. But yeah, I mean, other than that, I still think that, like, just to wrap it up, I just at first glance, I see Mike by 40.
Yeah.
Fair enough. All right, we'll move on.
Okay.
Cocaine?
Yeah.
What did you say?
No hate, Kyle.
Oh, okay. I heard cocaine. I don't know.
Yeah, go Kyle.
Real quick anecdote about my family life. My wife got upset at me the other day because I used the word cocaine in front of our 8-year-old daughter. We were talking about my father-in-law being old, and he said something about the 80s. I said, yeah, back in the 80s when your favorite pickup line was, what does this cocaine smell like? And so my wife got upset at me, and I said, we live in an era where she has to practice live, school shooters in the building, but she can't hear the word cocaine. Like,
No kidding.
I knew what cocaine was before 8, and she's way more mature than I was. Either way, that's just my own little personal nugget. Ryan, you want to break down Ben and Phil here?
I can. You had Drew breaking this one down, but I can
Oh,
do
I
it.
did? Oh, I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
All right.
Well, did I skip one? Oh, no.
It's
All right.
probably best. I mean, we all know how I feel. I'll probably show some resentment towards Phil's team the way he always did with me. Just throw shade on, that entire fucking roster. Just
All
throw
right.
shade at it.
All right. Well, then shut your
And
mouth and go
I'm
ahead.
good with it.
Yeah.
So doing okay, cool. My notes on this one are for them is I think it's the showdown between the number 1 pick versus the number 2 pick. Kind of, I like to compete there, see who should have went number 1. Between Jonathan Taylor and Christian McCaffrey. So that'll be interesting to see. And then you got Hill versus Jefferson. I like that matchup. Hill, I thought I was a little faded on Hill going into this year just with Tua, but it'll look like he'll get his targets and his throws and his opportunities. So that should be interesting. For Phil, I like the A.J. Dillon play. I like him on the wrong side. I believe he was in his flex, correct? I changed it. So nice, yeah. So in his running back spot, I love the A.J. Dillon play. I think he'll get him more points. I think he's RB1 in Green Bay over Jones, personally. The fade I had on him was just not overall for the year, but just this week. I thought it was interesting having Cordero in his flex, and I probably would have went with CD just because Cordero was going against the Rams, and I know Dak's out, and I know CD did not have a great week, but I honestly feel like he'll have a much better week this week with Cooper Rush just because he's going to try to go to the well. I think Micah. Oh, for Ben. Sorry, I'm trying to follow my notes. Ben with Micah Parsons. I like that matchup. Obviously, with Burrow getting sacked 7 times last week, Micah could have a huge week.
Micah's a problem.
Micah is a very big problem, and it might be a big problem this week. Yeah, I think with that, that'll be a close matchup too with them. I think Ben will pull it out over Big Philly style, I think.
Okay.
So
I kind of like your CD Lamb call there. I didn't verify this myself, but I heard this on one of the shows this morning that I kind of have on while I'm getting ready. CD Lamb's last 100-yard game came last year against Minnesota when Cooper Rush was quarterback, and he didn't have another one since then. So yeah, it very well may be get the ball to CD Lamb time. Maybe find ways to get him some confidence early, short throws or screens, or maybe even a reverse or something. But yeah, he's probably gonna have plenty of opportunities, and they're gonna need it. You have anything you want to say, Ryan?
I just off the top of my head, like I remember Micah Parsons. You accidentally switched to the next matchup, but
Oh,
like Micah is currently actively on Twitter asking for fans to help him improve his Madden rating. Which honestly, I mean, the dude has a point. He's unfreaking real.
yeah.
I never envisioned him in quite this role, especially in a 4-3, but like the dude is a monster.
Mm-hmm.
He really is. I mean, linebacker but can you think of off the top of your head a more how do you say destructive linebacker to come out of Penn State in a while? I can't. And I mean, he took the year off for COVID and then came in and did the damn thing.
Yeah.
Cordell Patterson is always going to have a special place in my heart. I remember distinctly drafting him in the whatever room you want to call it at Beloit College in the first round of keepers a really long time ago. For some reason, nobody has seemed to know what to do with him until he got to Atlanta, and now the dude's balling out. So it's obvious that the guy's always been able to do this, but nobody could figure out a way to get him the ball. Honestly, like I kind of tend to lean with Drew a little bit. I think Ben might have he needs a lot of things to go right, but I think that he's got an outside shot. I think the conservative pick tells me to go with Phil here. Even though I just wanted to motherfuck his entire roster, I still you can't help but appreciate it. I mean, it's a well stacked roster. You can tell he had a lot of early picks. Is McLaurin gonna ever develop a rapport with Carson Wentz? I guess time will tell. I wouldn't give up on him yet either. Is Devontae going to continue to get all the targets that Darren Waller is used to seeing? Who knows? A lot of question marks, but I mean, it's a really solid roster up and down. And if I was going to fade anybody on that roster just looking, I really can't, honestly. I mean, it's really solid top to bottom. I think Dylan, I would only fade him only because, like, I mean, yes, he's an RB1 on 75% of the teams in the league, including maybe Green Bay, but he's going to load share, and you know it. And then Brees Hall, I just they don't seem to love him as much in New York either. His own offensive coordinator said that Carter was the bell cow and the where the whole offense revolves around. But yeah, it should be a great matchup though, one of the better ones of the week, I think. But I would give a slight edge.
Yep, I think I'd pick Phil. Brees Hall. I think Michael Carter only had 10 carries, but he had 7 catches, so he had 17 touches. Brees Hall did have a fair amount of touches, but Carter looked like the better player to me, and he should be. He's in his second year, but he looked a lot more confident, decisive, quick in his cuts. One thing that worries me about Lamar Jackson is he had an offensive lineman go on IR this week. And then you go down to Miami. We all know Lamar's best when he's running. You don't want to run a whole lot in that Miami Heat. We'll see. But that could negate one of Phil's biggest ace in the hole is a long Lamar Jackson touchdown run.
Yeah.
All right, we'll move on. All right, so Nate and Dom, who has?
Yeah, this one's me.
Okay, I
All
thought
right.
I had them every other.
So at first glance, if you see me glancing over here, it's because I have notes. I apologize. I'm not trying to not make eye contact, but I mean, I looked at this, and I mean, as much as I like to give Dom shit, uh, if I had to pick, I think Dom has probably the best roster in the league.
Top to bottom.
Just yes, for my gut. No disrespect, Drew. I mean, obviously you dropped the 6'11" spot, but it's just for as far as top to bottom goes. I don't see a better roster that stays healthy in the league. I know he likes to pine for even more points, but I don't think he needs help. I think the guy did a lot of favors for himself in the draft. I was hoping that people wouldn't fall in love with DeAndre Swift. I think that's a magnificent pick for him. In fact, like while I was taking notes, he didn't have him in his lineup at the time. But he also, I'm seeing he's still, according to this lineup now, he also doesn't have Mike Thomas in the lineup. I get it. You might want to see if just the 1 week kind of thing was a fluke, but the guy showed up when it mattered in crunch time and scored a couple of touchdowns late in the game and basically put the team on his back, him and Jameis.
One of those was a really nasty catch.
Yes, it was, and it reminded you all that he is indeed Michael fucking Thomas. You know what I mean? He's a keeper for a reason. You invested a lot in him for a reason. I think you might be overthinking it by doubling up running backs on the same team. Now, granted, they are Chubb and Hunt. I get it. But I think just the safer play would be maybe to sit one of those guys and play Thomas. That was just looking at it for real. And then as much love as I have for Dom's roster, I don't love Nate's roster as much as he loves it himself, as evidenced by his draft grades. Of course, he's going to select. His formula is what's going to work for him. I could be totally wrong. He does have Cooper Kupp, which is like the ultimate freaking equalizer in fantasy at the moment. I mean,
he's insane.
He not only gets targets, he catches the targets, and he does something with them. But looking at it, it's like for me, like Allen Robinson, we all had plenty of fun at his expense on the chat board this week, and while the game was going on, Jalen Hurts, if he's gonna continue to vulture touchdowns from his running backs, he's a great play. That gives Nate, I think, a puncher's chance in this matchup, depending on what Hurts does. And with Kamara, I mean, is he healthy? Is his head in the game because he's got pending legal stuff? Who knows? Cole Kmet wasn't even targeted, or no, I take that back. He had one target for no catches, for no points in his early matchup. Now, granted, it was a monsoon game, but still. And then, but I do kind of like Nate's defense, but I think it's going to come down to Kupp versus Dom's depth, and I think Jalen Hurts is going to be the wild card here in this matchup, because he could either go for 40 or he could go for 140, depending on how many rushing touchdowns he gets. But real quick, Kamish, you do have a lot of young little prospects on your roster that aren't pictured here that I think are decent gambles that I kind of like. But as far as like having to start a lineup every week, I'm just I don't see what you see, man. But then again, you got chips and I don't, so that's all I got.
Yeah, I don't think Nate has probably adjusted his lineup yet this week. I could easily see, Michael Carter getting in there. Devontae, obviously after his 0 catches, do you think he's gonna? I know Tampa's a tough matchup too, but maybe Chris Olave, because he looked pretty good in limited touches. But I think Stafford would probably be the play over Minnesota to me. Over Hurts versus Minnesota. I think Stafford versus Atlanta would be a play for me. So I think that'll probably change. But yes, I've said it to you guys privately before we started, and even last week. I think Dom has the deepest team, top to bottom. And yeah, I knew he was gonna have. I changed it again, didn't I? Where am I
Yeah.
at? Sorry, I'm getting used. I'm getting used to doing this stuff the first time. All right. And then the yeah. So I think he's going to have tough things, but I'm same with you. I don't think I'd play 2 running backs from the same team, even if it is against the Jets. I think I would try and go for a little more possible touches. And yeah, I think Michael Thomas is a good idea. But you gotta, when you're the fantasy owner, you gotta go with your gut and stay with it. And hopefully, hopefully he feels confident in whatever he chooses. You got anything you want to add, Drew?
The Eagles looks like the Eagles are going to play a big part in this matchup with the Devontae and Hurts and AJ Brown. I can see him with the trying to take the added advantage. Hurts has a big game, targets Smith a lot more than Brown. That could help him swing this matchup. But I agree with that. With the Devontae, it's a tough play. Hard to trust him after last week. But you guys,
For sure.
DeAndre Swift's a great pick. So pretty much.
I didn't
Yeah.
sum up. I think Dom wins handily, honestly. Like I said, I think Hurt gives him a puncher's chance, but I think Dom wins handily.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree.
So we got 10 minutes left on this one here. And then we can start a number 2. Did I miss anything? No, I didn't. We did that one. Okay. All right. Who's got Brian and Goody?
I do.
Okay.
Just at first glance, again, Holy Niners.
Yeah.
And plus Jeff Wilson.
No, yeah. Well,
I mean,
he's gonna start, I think.
At least it's gonna work out for him. You know what I mean? Thankfully.
Mm-hmm.
But still, I mean, 1, 2, 3, 4 Niners in your starting lineup. There's only one ball. Unless Debo decides to go Debo from Friday and say it's my ball, punk. I mean, it's not going to solve your fantasy problems. But then again, we all know why Goody's in this spot that he's in because of his namesake, finding Debo, and I mean, it carried him to a championship last year. And yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
The other thing I noticed right off the gate about Brian's team was that he's starting 3 DBs. Now, granted, 2 of those I would say are probably very, very solid. Jaquan Brisker, you don't know really what you're going to get out of him because he's a rookie, but you don't see too many people in this league start 3 DBs. But when you have, 2 that are as good as Winfield Jr. and Smith, maybe you roll the dice on a Jaquan Brisker. You had a fumble recovery last week. Hey, why not? Like you said, you got to go with your gut. The other thing I thought about Goody was like Duvernay. That was quite a nice surprise, but I wouldn't make an expectation out of it. Wouldn't you possibly think about starting Jarvis Landry? Jarvis Landry was a target monster last week. Maybe that's an anomaly because they were playing Atlanta. Who knows? But and Jacoby Myers was in yours when I looked, but he's not now. But he's one of those guys I really like too. He's really valuable in real life, but he's for some reason it's just not going to translate to fantasy points. The guy doesn't find the end zone, which, as Dom will testify, is insanely important in this league. and also holy defense top to bottom on his roster. Like I wouldn't be able to verify it, but I think the guy's got more defensive players on his roster, Goody, I mean, than probably anybody in the league. He's got a lot of really cool prospects. Like if I were playing Madden, I would want Goody's team because he's got so many young, just athletic freak defenders, but that doesn't always necessarily, especially edge rushers and corners, don't always equate to consistency in this league, as you guys well know. Especially if you decide to put Mike Harper in, in the championship game.
Nick Harper, but yeah.
I'm glad you called me on. I want to make sure you're listening. And then Taysom Hill. I mean, is you can start him at tight end, I guess, if George Kittle's out, but he's another one of those guys that because Goody finds himself in this weird spot where he's got to have the booms. So I get him taking a lot of boomer bust players, but that when I look at his roster, it's like pretty much all boomer bust except for Debo. I think Debo's always going to get his to a certain degree. James Robinson, what a way to stick with him, Brian. That was outstanding. You saw some stuff that I didn't really expect. I didn't, especially week 1, coming off a torn Achilles. I thought he did outstanding. And then there's lots to love about your team. There really is. Like lots of intriguing prospects. You got really good lineup that you can start every week. I mean, you got a couple bell cow running backs. Probably at least the top 3 fantasy quarterback that you can throw out there every week. You got guys that rack up tackle, like Nick Bolton's a tackle machine. TJ Edwards is going to get him. Brian, but I mean, I think just because Debo finds himself in the spot that he's in, I think Brian wins this one pretty easily.
Yeah, I agree. And if, for what you're saying about Goody, if I were him, I would probably play for the future and go for a lot of young, athletic studs just to hope to hit on 1 or 2. So I don't blame him for that. But yeah, me personally, I don't like to start corners or edge players as for consistency, like you said. And yeah, starting 4 guys off 1 offense, that's it's not the 2000 Rams, you know what I mean? We're talking about the Niners here, which is based on running and defense. So all those guys are capable of having good games. And obviously it's hard to judge off of 1 week against a very game Bears team and a downpour. It's a very unique situation there. But Seattle looked tough enough, but maybe they're gonna have a letdown after pouring everything out to beat Russell Wilson in his return. You got anything you want to say, Drew?
I think you guys covered it.
Okay. Yeah. All right, we got about 3.5 minutes left on this one. Drew, you want to get started on this, or do you want to start a new? Or you want me to start a new one?
Probably should start a new one.
Okay, sounds good.
What do we got? 3 minutes left.
Yeah, less than 3.5 now. So, all right, sounds good.
Sorry, I'm noisy.
And pick it up in part 2.
All right.
This meeting is being recorded.
All right, welcome back, guys. Part 2. Let me share screen. Share. Still getting used to this stuff. Apologize. View slideshow.
All right. I like you like I'm like my porn. I like it amateur.
I got that hidden in the windows behind. All right. This is where we left off, right? With John and Ryan and Drew breaking it down. Yes. I tried not to let the guys have to break down their own matchups because it can be awkward. You're up.
No, I like this matchup this week. Contrary to what Ryan said, I think this will be probably the most interesting matchup under the radar. with Ryan. Hold on. Sorry, guys.
No,
I
you're
got the
good.
name. I looked at the wrong teams. Anyways, with Ryan, I think you have to be excited this week with Derek Carr. Obviously, the way Arizona looked, their defense, that could be huge. Could have huge points out of him. That David Montgomery was another uh, focal point that I had on my notes. I know a lot of people were fading him. There was reports, I believe, wasn't he on special teams in practice? They had him running it. Special teams, they didn't really like how he was looking, but I think they kind of put that to bed this last week. Then he had like 20 touches. I know it was a crappy game, so like Mike said, it's kind of hard to. I know it wasn't a lot of yards or a lot of points, but that the weather situations and that you can't really determine how his outlook's going to look for the rest of the year. But I think Chicago's going to ride him. I always like David Montgomery. I think he's really good. I think he'll have a good year this year. So that'll be a good focal point. Ryan, too, another point that I had. I don't know how I got. I'm sorry, I wrote your guys' names opposite. So John, I have John having Derek Carr. I don't know how I did that, but so it's throwing me off.
They are in the same game. I just now noticed that. I didn't pick that up before, but yeah, they're facing off in the same game.
Yeah, I don't know how I did that. So that must have thrown me off. But
in another matchup too.
Yeah, yep. And then the last note I had for Ryan was you've got to get Jerry Jeudy in your lineup, man.
I'm thinking about it. He was. I was this close to putting him in over Thielen, honestly, because of what Thielen did, early on. But I don't. With Philly giving up as many yards as they did to St. Brown and to DJ Chark, I don't know.
I was looking at it too. I was trying to see how you could get Jeudy in because I was thinking Thielen, but I'm with you on that. Without taking Thielen out, I saw the reports on Fournette. If he doesn't play, you could possibly.
Yeah. Montgomery. I was thinking that too because Fournette's got a bad hammy. So all you people that decided to destroy the trade, Fournette's already gimpy. So you guys will be happy to know.
He looked good though.
He did look good.
And then with John, I think this week, I think Pitts. I think even though it's the Rams, I know the Rams, they have a tendency of giving up some points to tight ends, and I think Pitts will. I think he'll get some garbage yardage. He'll get some points out of Pitts this week, which will be nice. I absolutely love Joe Mixon this week just because of I think Burrow's going to be under a lot of duress. If their offensive line looked like it did last week, Mixon's going to have they're going to have to put some balance in there. Mixon will have a big game, I think. Some check downs, a lot of runs. And then John, I love his pickup. I believe it was a waiver wire pickup or he drafted him, but I didn't really look into it that much. Curtis Samuel, I think you need to get him in your lineup somewhere. Not sure where you can get him in, but I think Samuel's got to be starting. He looked really good. He looks like he's back from a couple of years ago. Looks like Wentz likes him. So I think this will be an interesting matchup. I think it'll be really close. I think by depending on if Ryan does leave Thielen in his lineup, I think we could be looking at a Monday night showdown between Poyer and Thielen. Correct. I mean, and Kendricks. So I think it'll be a fun matchup to watch.
Yeah, I agree. I'll always have a soft spot for David Montgomery because the last 6 weeks of 2020 he was just unbelievable. And helped me to that title. Derek Carr does have a juicy matchup against Arizona, but you got to remember Andy Reid has a little bit better of a track record as a head coach than Josh McDaniels. So if I'm John, watching that deep post touchdown to Rashad Bateman last week had to have been like super sexy. because Bateman, obviously the de facto number one, and that looked that was a thing of beauty. So he'd be, I think he's really happy with his keeper choice there. Yeah, Ryan. I don't know if I would change too much. Thielen's one of those guys where at this point in his career, he's obviously not the number one, but he is a reliable red zone target. And that's where I could see him. He could have 4 catches with 2 touchdowns. You know what I mean? But the game flow will dictate a lot. If Slay's obviously still a really good corner. If he is on Jefferson and bracketing, with the safety over top, then Thielen might be the go-to guy. So it's a tough choice, tough call. But yeah, this one's kind of a toss-up. I think a lot of it's going to come down to Kyler and Carr. I think Pitts was kind of a disappointment to everybody who owned him last week. I think all Atlanta fans and everybody would like to see Pitts get more looks, but Kelsey was unreal. That's going to be the X factor there for Ryan. And if he has another game like that, then I think Ryan ends up pulling it out. But I wouldn't bet money on this matchup either way.
I know you got to be hating all these Thursday night games, right, Ryan?
Yes.
Especially from your bread and butter, Kelsey. I hate Thursday nights.
I do too. And I know the players hate them, but the league is never going to change it. So, kudos to John, honestly, on sticking with Rashad Bateman. It had to be tough having him stashed on your bench last year. Now, granted, you didn't have the greatest year, so maybe that made it a little easier for you. And I'm not digging, but maybe that made it a little easier for you. I don't know, but kudos to you for sticking with them. And now your dividends are paying off because, I mean, like you guys said, he's the de facto number one now, essentially. Duvernay took a couple of looks away from him last week. I think that more targets will have to go to Bateman. That honestly, like you said, that post pattern, surprisingly amazing throw by Lamar. Actually, was really pretty to see.
Yeah,
I think I would actually give the edge to John in this matchup personally. I don't know what's going to happen with Mike Evans, but I have a feeling he's going to play, especially with a gimpy Godwin. And I am not a huge fan of the Rashad Penny play. I think because Kenneth Walker Jr. or Kenneth Walker the third, sorry, as much as I love him, you'd think I'd know.
Junior.
Junior. KW3 is actually going to play this week. And they said they're going to make it a concerted effort to get him some touches. So Penny already was looking like he might be on the downward trend as far as touches go after the Denver game. But, I really, for your sake, I hope Penny works out. But for my sake, I hope Penny really, loses a leg or something so that I can have Kenneth Walker pan out for me. But I think the sneakiest good play for me in this matchup is having, Henderson Jr., especially against Atlanta. I think that's a tasty matchup, even with a nasty offensive line that the Rams have. I think they're going to have offensive line problems all year long. It's not something that's going to get fixed, but Henderson was even still finding ways to make himself look good in limited touches due to game flow against Buffalo. I think that's a really good play, and especially since the Rams coaching staff seems to be kind of developing a doghouse for Cam Akers. Yeah, I'm not going to speak to my own matchup because I don't even think my lineup is completely set in stone. I might change it like 7 or 8 times before kickoff. But I would give albeit slight, I don't want to count myself out, but I think that John is a slightly better play here.
Yeah, seems to me like Mike Evans has been questionable for 6 years. So I'm sure he'll play, but he does not have a good track record against Marshawn Lattimore. Lattimore's a stud, and he for some reason just loves playing Mike Evans. I think he just likes the big physical. I feel like he feels like he can be more physical, and I think it's just right in his wheelhouse. But Evans is one of those guys you have to play. You know what I mean? You just have to.
Absolutely.
So yeah, no, I think it's a good matchup overall. Should we move on?
I'm good with it.
All right, last matchup, Drew and Seth. Seth, I don't know if he's ever watched one single episode of BFL, but I believe he has actually. I believe he told me he has. Shout out to you, Seth. We miss you. We love you. Go ahead, Ryan.
All right. Looking at this matchup, I already said something about the not scary lineup being number one in points, but I think it deserves another shout. Mike, you really blew it on that one. Don't know why you're leading the show, but
all the way to the balls.
Anyway, honestly, I made this matchup. I gave it a name actually. I call it "Going to Target," because for God's sake, Jamar Chase had 16 targets last week, and Devontae had 7. I mean, it's unbelievable. I mean, that's what you just absolutely pray for as a fantasy owner, is it not? I mean, whether they only catch 10 of them or not, I mean, they're still getting 16 and 17 targets. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what though, like I love Dom's roster in the sense that I love how I think a little bit more proven it is with the depth, but I really, really, really like all the upside that Drew has. I mean, you can tell that he really did his homework. You and I, Mike, talked privately that we both knew that he was going to take Deshaun Watson very late, but I mean that's a ridiculously good stash. I mean, all he's got to do is come back and have 2 really, really, really good weeks, and you can trade him to Goody for a first-round pick like you did with Cam Newton. So either way, I think your lineup defensively is ridiculous. You got a tackle machine and Bobby Wagner. You got 2 ridiculously good safeties. Tracy Walker, I was actually thinking about taking him in the same round that you took him into. The guy is sneaky good, not necessarily even just as a player, but as a fantasy option, he's everywhere. Shaq Leonard, when healthy, is probably maybe the best linebacker in the league. What's that?
He's probable.
Oh, absolutely. But you always wonder with a back, what are they not telling us? You know what I mean? With a back, he could be just fine. It could just be spasms, or he could be having surgery. We really don't know. The other thing I said about your matchup, well, a few things. Saquon, dear God, it looked like he was worthy, right, of the draft stock that they invested in him. But for how long? I mean, you can't help but wonder. And with CEH, is he going to be able to do that every week? There's so many horses in the stable in that backfield that it just makes you wonder. I mean, is CEH going to be the guy that they ride this week? Are they going to go with McKinnon? Are they going to go with Pacheco? I don't know. And I think Javonte Williams is a sneaky good pick because I think he has 11 catches. You would expect Melvin Gordon, to me anyway, I would expect Melvin Gordon to be getting all the targets in the pass game, but I think Williams ended up with 11 catches.
Yeah.
So, I mean, in a standard Dom Wishes Yahoo League, Javonte Williams would be an absolute monster. But even in this league, I mean, he's really good. You can tell that he's probably going to be the real deal. Let's see, I already said something about Tay's 17 targets. Holy crap. Where is Mike Williams? Like, seriously, like what happened to him?
Yeah.
Now, granted, he had that to a certain degree last year. I mean, there were games where he would have, like 4 or 5 targets and only 20 or 30 yards, but then he'd turn around and he'd have 140 yards and 2 touchdowns. You know, I mean, that might be something you're might going to have to live with as a Mike Williams owner. I think you did the right thing by, you know, having him in your lineup. I think you did the right thing, but especially with Keenan Allen going to be out. But without Keenan Allen there to take away some defensive shifting and rolling coverages, is Mike Williams the number one? I guess we'll find out. Also, Najee, yikes. I didn't draft him right before you, Seth, because I was scared of his foot. And he hurt his foot against the Bengals. So how bad is it? Is it a re-aggravation? Is it something totally different? I mean, if it's a List Frank thing, all it takes is one tiny little tweak and Najee's gone for the year. And I think the Steelers' offensive line, I think, is atrocious. But another thing I said is, honestly, I think I would probably go with Dalton Schultz over Ertz in this matchup. Mostly because, I mean, is it going to be Cooper Rush? I guess he's not terrible, I guess, but Cooper Rush is going to have to throw to somebody, and you know they're going to be doubling up on CD. So I think Dalton Schultz is a better play than Zach Ertz personally. And then TJ Watt, man, that really sucks. One of the more exciting players in the game on that side of the ball. Honestly, even as a Badgers fan, never envisioned him being quite this good at this level.
No.
Dude wrecks games. And I love his passion, love his fire. Defense is sexy. I don't give a fuck what anybody says.
Amen, bro.
And is he going to go to IR? That would have to be your hope at this point. I think he's going to miss at least 6 weeks, is the initial report I heard. They thought it might be a complete pec tear, but it wasn't. So I think you lucked out there. But I really think that just looking at this matchup, DJ Moore's another one of those guys that is in. I love the guy, but with the QB carousel they continue to have in Carolina, including the latest show horse being, Baker Mayfield. I don't trust anything that they are doing to help DJ Moore out there. I think if DJ Moore is going to have the success that he probably deserves, going to have to be in another uniform, unfortunately. I'm not seeing the Mostert thing at all. I think Drew wins this matchup pretty handily, actually, just at looking at it. And Fred Warner, for my beef, is the best linebacker in the game, with a close second to Shaq. But he's not the guy, because I've owned him a couple of times. He's not the kind of guy that's going to just consistently rack up the points, unfortunately. He does so much for that defense, and he's by far and away their vocal leader and their captain, and he's the one that makes all the calls. But because he's so good at what he does, he also has to drop into a lot of coverages, and then other guys end up having to eat up the tackles. So even though I think he's a magnificent linebacker, he's one of those types of guys that's just not ever going to get the fantasy return that you would expect from his talent level. But I in closing, I think Drew wins this one pretty handy.
Yeah, I think so. I think Drew has several of those guys where even if they have an off week, they're still putting up 35, 40 points, and that's that's a lot higher than if some assessed guys have an off week. Najee says they said it's not too serious, says he's good to go. Yeah, Shaq Leonard, he's probable and practicing. So hopefully everybody's on the field in this matchup. But yeah, I would think Drew would have to win this one as well.
Anything, Drew?
You want a roster bed here?
Yeah, I got lost there for a minute. No, Rodgers scares me, obviously, against the Bears. I mean, I know no Devontae, but it's still Rodgers. Mike Williams. I feel like no Keenan Allen this week. Definitely is he'll get me. I promise you he gets a couple touchdowns. Najee. Yeah. And then my team, obviously, I mean, DK. I got 3 spots that I don't feel comfortable with, and that's DK, Hawkinson, and CEH, just because you don't know. Everybody else on that I have starting at least know how, that I know their role. I know they're gonna play. They're gonna produce, but I just I think it'll be closer. I for some reason Seth and I always have a close matchup, so I think it'll be a lot closer than.
Okay. But
Rodgers will put 150 points.
But you're still gonna win. Just whip it out. Roster bait right here.
Right now.
All right. Well, that does it for the matchup breakdowns. I believe we all have some trivia that we wanted to do, and I have a slide for mine, so I'll save mine for last. Drew, you want to go first with yours?
Oh yeah. Just a basic one. So, who has hosted the most Super Bowls?
Like what city?
Yes. What city has hosted the most Super Bowls?
I would say New Orleans off the top of my head.
That's what I was thinking, but I'll go with LA.
Both are wrong.
Good.
Would you like a clue? A hint?
I think it'd be Dan's. How about
Miami?
Bingo.
There
Miami.
Close to your heart since the Colts and Peyton Manning won a Super Bowl in Miami.
No, they played New Orleans in Miami.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought they played the Bears in Miami.
I did too.
I could be wrong. I'm getting old.
Devin Hester took that opening kick back, and I was like, ugh. But
and rainy.
It was.
So I guess are we moving on, or do you have another one, Drew?
No, that was it.
Okay. Well, since controversy creates cash, one of my favorite Eric Bischoff sayings. So we'll stick with the controversy stuff to keep the talk going, keep it churned. Since we're talking pick sixes, defensive touchdowns. And I already asked Mike this off camera. Drew, do you have any idea who the all-time leader in most return or interception returns for a touchdown is?
Who holds the most?
Yes, the most career.
Darrell Green?
Oh.
Ed Reed.
Not a bad pick. He played forever.
No, Ed Reed has the most yardage, most return yardage in history. But he does not have the most return touchdowns in history.
I could keep going. I mean, but I'm not going to.
Yeah, I'm sure you probably could. I don't want to keep everybody, with bated breath, though. It was actually Rod Woodson. For my money, the best DB to ever play the game. And second to him would be a very close second best DB to ever play the game for me, even though I'm probably a little biased, would be Charles Woodson. But also tied with what we were talking about, old date rape, Darren ain't nobody sharper. Do you know who the active leader is amongst active players?
For pick sixes?
Yes.
Eddie Jackson.
Oh, that's not bad.
No, but he's going to be in my next question to a certain degree.
Active leader for pick sixes.
Minka Fitzpatrick.
It might not. Yeah, it might be. Yeah.
No, it's Marcus Peters with 6.
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
Rod Woodson, I don't know if I gave the number before. I don't think I did. Had 12. And Chuck and Darren Sharper both had 11.
Wow.
Second active is Deion Jones with 5. Shout out to Kyle on Madden for that one. And there are 3 people tied for third with 4. Minka is 1. Harrison Smith, and this one blew my mind. That's why I'm even throwing it out there. Was Daniel Sorensen.
Oh wow.
Is he even on a roster right now? I don't know if he is or not.
No, I don't think so.
All right. So since we're still doing defensive touchdowns, does anybody have any idea who the all-time leader in fumble returns for a touchdown is? The reason I'm bringing up these numbers is because I'm trying to help continue to make the point that they don't happen near as often as people think that they do, even by the all greats.
Fumble returns for touchdown. Somebody got Lawrence Taylor.
You're right with the last name.
Taylor. Why am I? The only
Jason Taylor.
Jason Taylor, yeah. The only
Jason
name
Taylor had 6.
Yeah,
Jason Taylor had 6. And second was D'Angelo Hall and Jesse Tuggle both had 5. I don't know if you guys are old enough to remember Jesse Tuggle or not.
Yeah. Atlanta, right?
Yep, Atlanta. And active leaders for fumble return for touchdowns. There are 5 people tied with 3.
I don't have any idea.
You already brought up Eddie Jackson, so I'll go ahead and give you that.
Okay.
What was he on that? Was he number 3?
Yeah.
One of the 5?
They have these are active leaders right now. So
He's
people are still in the league that have a combined, 3 fumble return touchdowns in their career. So Eddie Jackson is 1, and then there's 4 more people that are tied with him at 3.
Darius Leonard.
What'd you say?
Darius Leonard. Shaq Leonard, I'm sorry.
No, not Shaq Leonard. He's a linebacker on your team, though, and in your starting lineup this week.
Bobby Wagner.
Bobby Wagner is one of them, yes. And then even though I go against defensive linemen in this league, so that pretty much diminishes my hope for ever getting a fumble return for a touchdown. The next 3 guys are defensive linemen.
J.J. Watt?
No, I would have guessed him too, but no.
T.J.
Watt. No, not Myles Garrett. Calais Campbell.
Okay, been around forever.
Jadeveon Clowney.
Okay.
And Fletcher Cox.
Yeah, I would have never guessed that one either. That's nice.
Yeah, that's what I got for trivia.
All right, we got about 6 minutes left here for mine. Yep. Mine, I think it's really cool how we have all our draft info like in that sheets thing. So I've just been kind of really intrigued at going back and looking at old drafts. So for this one, I focused on the 2010s. So my question is, in BFL draft history from the years 2010 to 2019, there were 3 players drafted 6 times in the first round, tied for the most in that time span. Can you name any of those 3 players? There were BFL first round picks from 2010 to 2019 6 times.
6 times.
LaDainian Tomlinson?
Nope.
I think that might be a little late for him.
Yeah.
I know. It's funny because 2010 doesn't seem like that long ago, and then some of the names made me think it was that long ago.
Calvin Johnson.
Calvin was drafted 5 times in the first round.
Oh.
It's 2 running backs and 1 wide receiver.
LaShawn McCoy.
Nope,
Well,
he was a keeper for a long time.
I think he was a keeper for a long time. Yeah.
2
Arian
running backs.
Foster?
Ooh.
Arian Foster was 4 times.
You said it was 2 running backs and what?
2 running backs and 1 wide receiver.
DeAndre Hopkins? No, he's a keeper too. Never mind.
Yep.
Wow.
The wide
This is a
receiver
good question.
the wide receiver is still active, but he's on a different team than he would have been drafted on.
AJ Green.
Nope, he was a keeper for a long time too.
Oh yeah, he was. You're right. Didn't you know who happened?
He's on his 3rd team in 3 years.
Julio Jones.
Julio
Oh
Jones.
yeah, I drafted him mistakenly a couple of times.
The other 2 are running backs. One of them,
Leonard Fournette.
no, one of them should be
You speak that name.
a sore spot for Drew, because you could have had him as a keeper.
Oh, AP.
Adrian Peterson. And the other one thought he was too good for his organization, so he took the money to go play for a bad organization.
Le'Veon Bell.
And flamed out Le'Veon Bell.
But he knocked the fuck out of Adrian Peterson in a boxing ring.
Yeah, he did.
So yeah, Megatron was drafted 5 times in the 1st round, as well as Antonio Brown. 4-time 1st-round picks were Todd Gurley, Zeke, Devontae Freeman, Marshawn Lynch, Matt Forte, Arian Foster, CJ2K, and Maurice Jones-Drew. 3-time picks were Cheeseburger Lacey and Steven Jackson. 2-time 1st-round picks, Saquon, CMC, Dalvin, Melvin Gordon, Leonard Fournette, Amari Cooper, Des Bryant, Demarius Thomas, Randall Cobb. Surprisingly, he was a 2-time 1st-round pick. Trent Richardson, Rashard Mendenhall, and Frank Gore. One of the guys I actually did not remember his first name just by looking at his initial. I was like, oh yeah, when I looked him up. It was R. Matthews, running back from the Chargers.
Ryan Matthews.
Yeah. So these guys were all drafted once. Mixon, Kelsey, Josh Jacobs, Kareem Hunt, Doug Baldwin, Brandon Cooks, Allen Robinson, Tyler Lockett, Sammy Watkins, Andrew Luck, Monty Ball, Jimmy Graham, Gio Bernard, Muscle Hamster, Alfred Morris, CJ Spiller, Greg Jennings, Tom Brady, Darren Sproles, Victor Cruz, Roddy White, Mike Vick, Peyton Hillis, LeGarrette Blunt, Ryan Grant, Peyton Manning, Ryan Matthews, Randy Moss, Reggie Wayne, and D'Angelo Williams.
Please tell me you didn't say Peyton Hillis.
Peyton Hillis. He had a huge year, and he was on the cover of Madden.
I know.
Yeah, no, that was pretty wild for sure. So
did you say Tyler Lockett? Because I know Tyler Lockett was in there.
Yeah, Seth drafted Tyler
Baldwin too.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and then
we're about out of time, guys. I'm seeing.
So by the way, real quick, Ryan, both Super Bowls were in Miami.
Oh wow, how about that? How about that shit?
I was thinking Tampa. I don't know.
Well, I think it was a great show, guys. I appreciated doing it with you. Loved it.
For sure.
Good luck. I won't take so long next time, I promise. I won't do a roster breakdown every week.
Fair enough. All right. We'll call it here. Everybody, good luck week 2. Stay happy, stay healthy.